Hey, what's going on, Candelas? It is Dan Thomas with 8Z Real Estate and the latest episode of Spotlight on Candelas. In this episode, I have a wonderful conversation with Christine Robenalt, also known as Christine, physical therapist. And although we do cover some information on her field of physical therapy, we thought we'd have a conversation about our kids and the world that they're living in these days. So we have a wonderful conversation about foundational stuff, how our bodies are set up, how our brains are wired, and then we transition into taking that information into some best practices, again, based on the world that our kids are living in these days. So I had a wonderful time with this conversation. I think you will too. So take a listen. All right. Well, welcome, Christine. Thanks for joining me today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for
So,
having me.
yeah. So, I don't want to date you in any means, but, physical therapy and being a physical therapist, you started in 2001. So you have some experience. So, how'd you get started in this field?
Well, when I was younger, I had a third grade teacher, Mrs. Catero, who was pregnant at the time, and she lined us all up during the movies. We were watching like movies, and she would ask us to give her back and shoulder rubs. And I remember, well, I don't know, think she asked me to come back twice. Like everybody else maybe gave that, and then she said for me to come back again. And that always stuck with me, like, maybe I'm really good at this. And so that kind of planted the seed, and my dad would always give me like back rubs, and I had an interest in the body and how it moved. And then when I learned about physical therapy, I thought that really would be great because I could work with people, and I really wanted to work with kids in movement and exercise. So that kind of led me down the path of physical therapy. I did quite well in high school, and so I had good grades to get into a particular program that allowed me to go in entry level, which was really amazing, especially thinking about it now, that I actually do have learning challenges that I wasn't aware of. So I was able to just go through the whole program, got my master's degree. I don't have my doctorate. That's commonplace now, but I don't. Yeah, graduated in 2001. I worked in every single type of facility there was. And in fact, in Denver, when we moved here in 2004, I worked in over 50 different facilities in Denver as a contract therapist. So I got to do so many things. I was doing telehealth back in 2011 and continued to grow that. Worked in the schools, worked in outpatient clinics, nursing facilities, and finally was able to start with pediatric home care. And that's pretty much where I've stayed since 2012 or so.
Yeah, and I know you have a passion with, you mentioned pediatrics, and that's kind of the lane that you've found yourself in. And I know that you've mentioned that you work with early intervention kids. Your passion is with dyslexic and ADHD kids. How has your story kind of made you relatable to a lot of the kids that you specialize in and work with?
Yes. So I think when I was growing up in the late 70s and 80s, ADHD was there, but it was basically a diagnosis that was given to boys. And so me talking super fast and me going all over the place and darting from this topic to that topic and always in your face just came off as me being a girl and an extrovert or Italian, which all of those
or everything combined.
Yeah. And it wasn't until actually I started in college I noticed that there was something different about the way I learned, but I just thought I was a kinesthetic learner. And then after I had my first son and I was schooling him at home for preschool because I thought I could teach him colors and letters and numbers and things, I noticed that he was having a really hard time. First he didn't talk until after he was 2, which even though I wasn't in early intervention at that time, I knew that there was something a little bit like he should have words. He had lots of signs, but he didn't have any words. Anyway, so then that kind of got me thinking, and He never played with toys the way he was supposed to. Like the toy was meant for A, but he was always thinking of B, C, D, and
Right.
Z to do with the toy. And I just thought that was interesting. And I didn't have any real formal training in development of kids. Like, fine, I understood what you're supposed to do to get to walk. But as far as like all areas of development, I didn't have that training at that time. So it turned out that he was dyslexic, very dyslexic. And as I started learning more about dyslexia, I realized I am dyslexic. And that filled in all the gaps of why I would ask my mom to read to me like books. Like in the 4th grade, I couldn't get through the book Sounder. I specifically remember her asking her to read this to me because I couldn't. Or things that I would do, like I would just take the tests on the computer to earn points for like Book It and different like challenges they had for reading. I never read any of those books. I just guessed.
Yeah.
I won. Like I won the contest.
Right.
Because
And that's not uncommon. You know, I mean, you know, I think a lot of people know, but my daughter's dyslexic, so I've learned a lot more about it than I in the last few years. And you know, a lot of my colleagues were dyslexic, and they all share the same thing of they knew how to manipulate to hide things, whether it was reading out loud in class and seeing the order and going like, oh, okay, I'm going to be 6th, and what paragraph that's going to be. And, you know, they practiced it before they got called on. I mean, so it's not uncommon.
it's not uncommon. In fact, the numbers, the percentage kind of varies, but sometimes they'll say as many as 1 in 5. So 20% of students have some sort of dyslexic trait. And dyslexia is not only seeing letters and numbers backward. And so that's, I think, also just awareness about what dyslexia is. It actually begins in your ears, how you're processing sounds. And then those sounds turn into letters. And if you have a difficulty with the letters and the sounds, then that's even more challenging. And that was the difficulty with my older son. He has so many components of dyslexia that, you know, even the strategies that I came up with on my own weren't working for him because he didn't have access to that at that time. Anyway, so, you know, yes, I was able to have a lot of compensatory strategies until I got to college and things started falling apart for me. But I didn't have any resources, and, you know, felt, even in grade school, I felt this anxiety. Even though I was put in the smart kid class and moved up and put into enrichment, I still had this anxiety that I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I cried all the time in school. And my parents just said to stop crying. What are you crying for? There's nothing to cry for. And so I really, I connect to the kids who have ADHD and dyslexia, one, because I do as well. It just was never diagnosed.
Right.
2, I know how it feels not to understand what's going on. And so as a parent now, I didn't first have that perspective, right? I like, here I am the parent. I'm the parent. You're going to do what I'm going to do, what I'm going to say, and you're going to listen to me. And if you don't listen to me, there's going to be a consequence. But I realized pretty quickly with my first son, who's 12 now, and then my 8-year-old and my 6-year-old, that my way or the highway isn't going to work. And I realized if I truly, I feel like I'm about 20 years behind with my social emotional development because I was stuck in anxiety.
Yeah.
So I work with all ages, and I'm amazed when a person who's younger than I am like gets this. I'm like, wow, how did you learn this so fast?
Yeah.
Because it took me until I was in my late 30s to understand how to feel an emotion.
Yeah.
So that kind of prompted me to learn more about this and to develop a curriculum that I taught at 3 Creeks last year called Emotions in Action. And then I got my yoga certification. So now I'm really ready as a physical therapist and as a dyslexic learner and as a yoga certified yoga teacher that I can really bring this to kids who are struggling with understanding this, and parents who are also struggling at how to connect with their kids because they, as parents, don't have the same struggle.
Yeah.
It's really hard to understand something that you have never experienced.
Right. So, just to park the parental aspect and the best practices, because we're definitely going to cover that. But I think it's important before, we get in, to those relatable aspect and the best practices, of just giving everybody a foundation of how we are as humans. And I know when we chatted the other day, you really started with, that we all start the same as sensory beings. Can you elaborate on that to kind of just give everybody the foundation of how we are, how we're wired,
Yeah.
to kind of help with some of those best practices that we're going to get into?
Absolutely. So let's start there. Let's start at this very clean slate of who we are from our essence. As a human being, we are sensory beings. We gain information from our environment, not only our external environment, but our internal environment as well. And we have been afforded these 10 senses. So we know about the 5 senses of touch, taste, sight, smell, and hearing. Those are obvious, we learned those in school, but I'm going to talk with you about 5 more that we have. And as a physical therapist, and there are so many PT, OT, and speech therapists who live in the community. So, I'm preaching to the choir here if anybody is listening. We have a vestibular sense, which is in our inner ear, that is very closely tied to our vision, by the way, that tells us where we are in space. But not only where we are in space, but do I feel safe? Because everything is about safety and survival. So if a sense coming in from our internal, external environment isn't allowing me to feel okay, if I feel uncomfortable, I'm not going to want to keep doing this. Or I'm going to not be able to focus. I'm not going to stay in calm and alert to be able to access my thinking brain. So we have our vestibular sense, where I know where I'm in space. Then we also have our proprioceptive sense, where I know where I am in space based off of the position of my joint. So a lot of kids who have torticollis and neck issues, they don't feel good at lengthening a certain muscle. So they don't go there. So then we don't learn how to roll. We don't learn how to experience movement to one side of our body because our body is saying, no, thank you, don't go there. And we have a lot of other, it's not just torticollis, even just being able to sit up straight. Do I feel okay sitting up straight? If wondering why you're always slouching or why your kids are always slouching, it's not because they're lazy. It's not because they don't want to sit up straight. It doesn't feel okay, or it's a lot of work. And so
I just caught myself as you're saying this going, oh, am I slow?
Right. And where's your awareness, Dan? Did you have, until I said that to you, you didn't have an awareness in your own body. That's your proprioceptive sense.
Yeah. No, and I didn't, and you said, and then I caught myself looking at the screen going like, oh, wow, I'm kind of like, I have my shoulders hunched over.
So you didn't use your proprioceptive sense only. What else did you use? You used your
sight and sound.
Yeah. And to realize, and then now we can go ahead and come into that perfect posture that you want. What does that feel like to you? You need to have an awareness of what this feels like to compare it to what this feels like.
Yeah, I mean, it's way more centered and way more powerful.
And you feel probably more alert.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you said it perfectly. Like almost everything perked up when I, kind of, sat up, and shoulders back, and so.
Notice where your eyes went. Your eyes went probably more to the top of the screen, where you lifted as opposed to coming down. But if this posture itself doesn't feel okay to your child, they're going to come here, and then they're not in their most alert state. Their eyes are coming down, but that's not because they don't want to be alert, because the opposite doesn't feel okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's proprioception. Yeah. So then we have an interpersonal sense, how I feel with you. Even here virtually, I can still get an interpersonal sense. Even in the virtual school, your teachers, your students still have a sense of connection virtually. And if that doesn't feel safe, then I'm going to check out.
Right.
Or if it makes me feel like anxious, it still can come through the screen. Yeah. But if I do feel safe and calm and alert talking to you, then I'm going to pay attention to you all day.
Yeah.
We also have an intuitive sense. Just how do I feel in my situation? And so that's what I wrote on like through school. I wasn't getting information in like watching. In fact, that almost always overwhelmed me. Visual information overwhelms me. Auditory information can be helpful, but that also can get really overwhelming. So then I just rely on, what do I feel like I need to do right now? So I've learned to be able to pay attention more to details, but honestly, even as a physical therapist, what I know to do is probably because it feels like I should do it.
Right.
That sounds like really scary if you're the parent. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. No, but it's true. I mean, plenty of people rely on that gut feeling, and that's where that intuition is coming from, correct?
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of dyslexic learners do that. They're really good at noticing patterns, noticing sequences, predicting what's going to happen next. And if that's beneficial to your line of work, financial planning, real estate, perhaps. I'm not saying that you are dyslexic, but just maybe putting that curiosity out there. It is in the family line.
Yeah.
That we play off those strengths, and we get better at what we practice, especially when we're feeling okay with it.
Yeah.
So this, I got better at using that high level connection. I didn't get better at noticing details because I didn't practice that, because that felt uncomfortable. And the same is true for our kids. We're going to get better at what we're good at, and we should definitely find their strengths, because that can help them develop some of those areas that aren't working as smoothly. We can't ignore it, though. We can't just say, oh, okay, you'll just get it in time. No, if something isn't like working easily for us, we absolutely do need to address it, but we have to find that entryway. We have to find the right key and meet that child where they're at. So this is a lot about balance and like having a goal for our kids, but also creating that connection with our child so that we can have the same shared goal. Something is hard for you today. I need you to get up here. And the only way we're going to get there is with practice, but only if we're finding that right level of practice. And I'm helping you motivate you, but I'm also helping you develop this internal motivation so that we can go together. Because if it's just me as a parent saying, this is what we're going to do, and if you don't like it, I don't care. Good luck.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have experience with how that works out in your home, if that was the only driver.
No, it's absolutely relatable. And so we start as sensory beings, and and again, I think you have so much to offer for strategies and best practices. But I also think because again, it is all starting with the connection from sensory on into the strategies. So, and they all intertwine with each other. So the how the brain plays a part in this, I know as a parent and talking with other parents, there's that frustration that comes from that, hey, I've explained it and it's the same things are being done, the corrections not happening. I'm I guess the best example is the phrase I heard a while ago is how can I be so smart and stupid always wins? Is that the way that the brain is developed, neurotransmitters, neuroplasty, if as adults, or kids, something has been done a certain way over and over again, that neuroplasty lengthens, and it gets. And now I'm getting into your field, so correct me if I'm wrong. But it lengthens, and when it comes to making that decision, the brain's going to do with make that decision based on what they're familiar with versus necessarily the right or wrong decision. And I think understanding that is huge, because as a parent, that frustration can come like, I've done everything. Like, why are they consistently, falling in this pattern or making those decisions? Can, you give me more of the expert explanation of that? Because I when I heard it and heard it from you the other day, like, it made a lot more sense as a parent. So.
Right. So, okay, this is a really big topic, and it covers not only us as parents, but like you said, your own personal self, why you might not be reaching your own personal goals. Coming up here in the new year, we're going to set goals for and motivation and desire, and it's a very complex system, so I'll do my best to organize it in a way that makes sense. Yeah. So ask me if it doesn't. So like I said, we're all sensory beings. We're learning from our environment. Our primary goal as a person, as an animal, is for safety and survival. So if we perceive anything that throws us out of self-preservation or survival or my place in the world, I'm probably going to react instead of respond. I'm going to go down to the lowest common denominator, which are reflexive things. What are reflexes? There are things that are done automatic without thinking, because if I'm in a time of survival or protection, I can't think. Touch a hot stove. You do not have time. Before you even have a thought that the stove is hot, what does your hand do?
It flinches back, yeah.
It happens in milliseconds. You didn't even have the thought that it's hot. Your body reacts before the thought. So if that's the purpose of a reflex, to help us with protection, survival, and safety, and we need reflexes, because if I step out into the street and I'm not paying attention, I need, as soon as it enters my awareness at some level that I'm not safe, I need to be able to jump back. I need to run the other way. I can't just keep walking, or I will be hit by the car. So that's for my own survival of myself and my species. I need to react without thinking. So this is what you just said. You're so smart, but stupid always wins. Because if in the moment you hit that threshold, you hit your window of tolerance where you are no longer in calm and alert for whatever those 10 senses I just talked about, or a combination of, you are no longer accessing your thinking brain. You only have accessible to you, that's not a word, accessible to you, your automatic process of whatever your habit or former behavior was.
Right.
Until you build a connection, until you use your wonderful neuroplastic brain. Yeah. What does that mean? That we can actually create new brain cells. Neurogenesis occurs in our brain, in our hippocampus, and in our olfactory areas. It's proven. So our brain can grow. Yes, we're losing brain cells every day, and we can contribute to losing brain cells with our behaviors. Yes, this is true. But we also have the capacity to grow our brain. What's going to help us grow our brain more is to keep ourselves in an environment of calm and alert, because extra stress kills brain cells. Yeah. So
because if you're not in that present state of mind, you don't have the alertness to develop the reflex.
Yes, so it is going to work up and down. That's absolutely true. So reflexes, primary reflexes, developed 0 to 1 year old, and then they're going to grow and develop against more resistance and more variety up until about 2 or 3. And even up until the age of 10, something called our extrapyramidal system is working almost exclusively. That's our sensory system. So 0 to 3, I'll give for the development and the progression of these reflexes. Those stay with us. If we don't integrate that well into our motor plans, into our emotions, into our thinking, we're going to reach our threshold faster. We're going to get pulled right back down into that reflex without thinking. So this is even something that as I learn about this, I'm realizing in my own body. And part of the reason for poor posture is a decreased awareness, but part of the reason for the decreased awareness is because I'm not listening to my sensory system of what's really going on. I'm not paying attention that I'm slouching. I have no awareness. In fact, my mother would have said, Chrissy, sit up straight. And I'm like, I am sitting up straight. I feel like I'm up straight. This is actually a lot of work.
Yeah.
Because my sensory system was saying, this is actually not very comfortable. Other people don't have that issue. If their primary reflex and through their spine was giving them accurate information, this would have made sense to my body. But I didn't. I kept getting bigger and growing anyway. And it has nothing to do with core strength. I hate to burst your bubble. Core strength, that's a fad word. Coordination, I need you to coordinate your senses so it makes sense to you, so you can actually respond appropriately and grow that window of tolerance so that you can access your thinking brain. So what do we do in school? We tell kids in Three Creeks that they have a wonderful curriculum, but they say to use your wizard brain, not your lizard brain. In all reality, we need to pay more attention to our lizard brain so that we can use our wizard brain.
Right.
If we stop that information coming in, if we don't pay attention to I don't feel safe, then we are always going to be reacting because we haven't grown that window of tolerance. Yes, all of our children are super smart and we know they can do this. But in the moment, if they go outside of their threshold, they actually can't do it.
Right. Yeah. So, so that's the foundation,
Yeah.
just, I mean, and we joked around it, when we chatted the other day that, this, we're trying to do something, in a condensed time frame that, probably, we could do for hours and hours, give the Reader's Digest version. So, kind of getting in, to the best practices, again, hopefully people have, a better understanding of the foundation of how we are as beings and how we're, wired and how the brain plays a part. But especially focusing, I thought it'd be great to do the best practices in the sense of what we're all dealing with right now, or our children are dealing with right now, which is, an online school environment, staying in a lot. So, the first best practice you gave me is setting up an environment for success versus just demanding excess.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Sure. And I've thought a lot about this since we last chatted. So before I get into this, I'll recommend 2 books to read. One is called Incognito by David Eagleman. And that one describes those rival parties in our brain and how it is possible not to always using your highest self, not to always use that smartest, and why that is. There's another book from Susan David that's called Emotional Agility. And that's actually where all of this kind of started to initiated from. As I read her book, I thought, oh gosh, there's a lot here that so many people could benefit from. And she has a small section about parenting, but the whole book itself is just really understanding. And of course, you could read Brene Brown and vulnerability, but some of those things are secondary until we understand this primal need and the survival and safety. It's hard to be vulnerable if you don't feel safe. So, Brene Brown is amazing and all of that, but we have to understand some of these things. When first invite what you want to see. That's step 1. So in the case of setting up your environment, that's part of it. If I want my child to do something, I will ask for that. If they comply, if they do it, then that tells me right away that they're on calm and alert. They listened, they heard, they understood. They can show me what they know. Awesome. If I don't get what I just invited from them, I need to check myself, because my first reaction is to yell or get upset or get mad. What do you mean? You know what to do. But does that serve my purpose? Does that help me meet my goal? Probably not. Was there actually a threat to myself, my safety, my survival in that moment? No. it was a perceived threat. I'm being perceived as a perceived threat because I'm feeling like, my role as a parent is being tested here. I need to keep myself in charge. So there is a perceived threat of safety, but it's not an actual threat. So I don't have to react. I, as a parent, can stay calm and alert and understand, take the child's perspective of what's going on in their environment right now. Ask, how are you feeling? And maybe they don't even know, but oh wow, you seem like you're acting a little bit nervous or a little scattered right now. Let me help you. And this is where, again, our external and internal environment, so both play a role. So if my external environment is really messy, that's going to make me feel anxious potentially inside, and I'm not going to be able to, maybe I don't even notice that, but you can see it on their face. Again, drawing that awareness. Dan, you are sitting so straight now. Look at that. I bet you feel really good in your body.
Yeah, no, my alertness has definitely gone up.
So it's helpful to identify not only the things you want your child to correct, but reinforce what you are seeing in them. Reinforce the positive. Wouldn't we want everybody to tell us what we're doing well first before they start correcting us?
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
So yeah, especially with this developing brain and again, so 0 to 10, we're primarily drawing in information from our environment, internal, external. That's really driving us. After the age of 10, we can start using past experiences more. We can start just learning for learning's sake. But prior to that, so strongly sits the sensory system to tell us about safety and survival, because we don't have a frontal cortex to give us information. Of course, we're developing this. So it's not like one turns off and one turns on, but it's this gradual change, and we can be mindful of that as parents and pay attention to internal and external environment. This is why nutrition, sleep, exercise is so important, because for multiple reasons. One, it helps create a better internal environment for our kids. It also helps build resiliency. So if they do get pushed over the edge, they've got something to land on. They've got some cushion. They're not going to just deplete their system. In school, we'll talk about filling your cup. Well, yeah, let's fill up our cups. How are we filling up our cups? We're filling up our cups with positive words that we're using. We're filling up our cups with physical activity, good nutritious food, lots of sleep. But if your cup is drained, and many of our cups are drained right now, because there's so many demands that are different and new, and novelty is good. But if novelty makes me feel unsafe, if I'm unsure of what's going to happen, then that's a stressor on me. Right. And it's a stressor on your child, especially even though you as a parent may not perceive whatever is going on as such a big deal. That doesn't mean that your child's not perceiving it as such a big deal.
Right. Yeah, and then that's the, relating and understanding, and not, trying to see it through not just your eyes, but also their eyes.
Yeah. And again, this is all about balance. If we can find balance, if we can stay in this zone, Dan Siegel, another neuroscientist who will talk about, and a doctor who will talk about windows of tolerance. We want to open the window of tolerance, but we can't just break it. And I can't slam that window down on the kid's fingers either. Like, I need to grow this window of tolerance. For my private business, I used to have a tagline of support and stretch. Support the child where they're at and stretch them to where you want them to go.
Right. So that's a great segue into, we've kind of teased this connecting of dots. That part of the developing successful strategy is not just telling them what should be done, but helping them see that, hey, leading by example with good sleep, healthy nutrition, movement, will lead to giving yourself a chance to succeed in this environment, and then this but having your room cleaned and your workspace organized will help you succeed in your schooling that day and help you get your assignments done in a quicker fashion, which then leads to what ultimately you want to do, which is go ride bikes with your friends.
Yes.
But I mean, we really have to help them, back to the way we're wired with our brain. They need to see that connection. We can
Yes.
tell the kids 1,000 times, don't touch the stove, it's hot.
Yes.
But till they sometimes, make that connection. Oh, they were right. So I know we've teased it for a while. So kind of explain how it plays a part in creating the successful environment.
Yeah. So step 2, when they don't do what was invited, then looking at where the resistance is. Resistance will always be met with resistance. So you can keep pushing and they're going to push right back. How can we lessen that resistance so that we can create some space between impulse and action? That's what we want. I do need to give support and structure. Yeah, it's not like a free-for-all. By no means am I saying just let your kids do whatever the heck they want. But if we push so hard that we push them over, or that they push us over, we're not getting our goal either. So how much resistance can we give where we find this safety for them? And creating structure, creating some real solid rules and routines will help them feel better about what's being asked. Or getting that motivation, like, I can see that you really want to go outside to ride your bike right now. We first need to clean your room, and if that's the case, for the first 10 times, I need to be handing the child the toy to put away, or I need to be marking it on their desk. This is where X goes. This is where Y goes. They need that support and structure to feel successful, because in order to get something done, 2 things need to be true, and I'll probably have to end on this point. I need to actually want to do what's being asked of me. I need to have that motivation, that internal motivation and drive. And 2, I need to know that I can. And if either of those 2 things aren't true, I'm not doing it.
Awesome. Yeah, I know you have to get to an appointment. So again, I could go on for hours with you, and maybe we'll have to do a follow-up interview down the road. But real quickly as we wrap up, kind of plug all the places, because I know you wanted to do this interview not necessarily to help grow your business in the community, but really kind of come across or convey to the community in our neighborhood that you want to be a resource with all this stuff. And so I know that there's plenty of ways to follow you, your podcast, YouTube, you're on Facebook, kind of plug yourself, because I know you have 2 minutes before you have to go.
Yeah, no worries. So yes, so right now I do have a full-time job that I love very much, and I'm not leaving. So therefore, all my extra stuff, which actually my extra side business, all the money I use there is going toward my education and through a program where I'm learning all of this stuff to do more of it. So if you want my services as a certified infant massage instructor, I do private classes and group classes. As a yoga instructor, I'll do private classes, group classes. I'll come and volunteer at your Girl Scout or Boy Scout troop. You want to just chat with me about the nervous system, you can find me at sweetpeapediatricwellness.com. You can find me on YouTube, also at Sweet Pea Pediatric Wellness. You can email me at info@sweetpeapediatricwellness. On Facebook, I'm Christine, physical therapist. And my podcast. Oh yeah, I've got a podcast called Dyslexically Successful. So I'm also going to be doing in January or February a community panel virtually, most likely, by the same name. So if you are a dyslexic learner and want to be either on my podcast or on our panel, please reach out to me. info@sweetpeapediatricwellness.com would be the best. Sweet Pea Pediatric. Yeah, .com would be the best way to do that.
Yeah.
Had to think about that. But yeah, thank you so much, Dan. And I truly, I love talking with people and just want people to know who I am and that I'm available for any questions relating to physical therapy, ADHD, dyslexia, trauma. That's all in my wheelhouse here. And I can come and do mobile massages as a physical therapist to the community. So
yeah.
All right.
Oh, well, like I
So
said, we had a conversation the other day, and then obviously today, and I know we had to wrap up. So, I know last year at Three Creeks, you did, teach, strategies for helping kids stay present. So we'll make sure that we, list that in the description. Plus all the books and the ways to find Christine will also list, so everybody doesn't have to be in a mad rush to write this all down. So, but like I said, it was a pleasure. I learned a lot. Obviously now I know about my posture, and considering I have 5 hours of Zoom meetings today, I'm in a better position to succeed. So again, thanks for joining us. And again, anybody in the community, she's a wealth of knowledge and wants to be a resource in our neighborhood. So don't be shy to hit her up. So thanks so much, Christine. I appreciate it.
thank you. Bye.
Well, there you have it. As I mentioned, Christine has so much information to offer. She's passionate about consuming information and then making sure she shares it back with us. Make sure to reach out to Christine, again, having a few conversations. I know she is sincere in wanting to be an ambassador and a resource to our neighborhood. So I will make sure that we list all of Christine's contact information, where to find her website, her social media channels. Make sure you check out her podcast. Again, it was a fantastic conversation. I could have gone on a lot longer, so I will make sure to have Christine back next year so we can finish the conversation. If you are a business owner or a influencer in the Candelas neighborhood and would like to be featured on a future episode of Spotlight on Candelas, feel free to contact me at 303-349-9288. Or you can email me at dan@8z.com. We are heading into the holidays, so I want to wish everyone a safe and happy holiday season. 2020 was definitely groundbreaking. We all survived, so here's to looking forward to a great 2021. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.